I'm ready.
Welcome to the Sedona Soul Sisters show. We're so glad to have you with us today. I want to say a quick hello to our listeners in New York, New York. I see that listener base there going up and up. So thank you for tuning in to us. We're so glad to have you here. Today's topic is Nordics, or also known as tall whites. This is our once a month focus on an alien race. And hopefully Terry Ann will be able to get in soon. She was having some internet connectivity issues, so we'll see what happens with that. So let's just talk a little bit about this race. It's interesting because the Nordics tall whites, I'm going to ask you first, Roz, have you ever had any kind of encounters with a Nordic or tall white?
I did.
What happened?
I was in here one day in my office. Ed happened to be here that day with me doing, running the receptionist area and doing computer work. And suddenly I had this extremely tall, everything, the whitest skin, the whitest, amazing aura around this whoever he was. He was obviously somebody who was a very powerful leader, and he came in and he just sort of beamed in into the reception and lobby area in the corner over by where the pyramid sits, and he absolutely was like as tall as our ceiling, which I think is like what, 9-10 feet. And he had on a long purple robe. And I just was stunned. And I literally said what I always say, it's a brilliant response. What are you doing? What do you need? So he indicated to me that he had come to assist me, and that, I needed to get ready. Well, I didn't know what I was getting ready for. Like the psychic didn't get that, but I was so stunned. And I actually said to Ed, do you see that guy? Do you see him there? I mean, he was amazing, just an incredible presence. And shortly thereafter, a woman actually, like our kind of species, walked in the front door. And she had been driving across the country, also from a Nordic race, very tall, white blonde hair, the bluest eyes you've ever seen. And she had her phone in her hand. And she said, I was just driving across the I-40 and talking to my friend. She was, I believe she was from Denmark or somewhere originally. And she said, and suddenly she told me that I needed to look at my phone and I needed to come and see the person on my phone. And it was me. So it was the most interesting thing. We spent the day together. We went to lunch. It just happened. I had nothing on my calendar that day. It was one of those days that I have certain days that I limit how much I'm going to do for my energy. And it was just amazing. And what she does, she told me that she works with a church in the southeast of the country. She goes back and forth to Africa, and she works with people there who, need education, need housing, it's literally like a tribe of people. And that's what she does. That's why she was put on the earth. That's what she does.
I remember that day. I just didn't connect it to Nordics.
I just was absolutely stunned. I mean, when those kind of things happen, you don't even have time to process that. You don't have time to, you just got to get into the energy and go with it. It was great.
So true. Oh
and
my gosh.
I've stayed in touch with her. I'm in touch with her on Instagram and Facebook, and also we occasionally, will connect with a message or something like that. And if I suddenly became a millionaire, I'd probably donate, because I think what she's doing is so wonderful. And there's a lot of videos online of the people she works with in Africa. And gosh, those kids are just the cutest, And they had a village at one point a few years back, and then it was flooded out. It had a lot of stuff like that over there. So she, when she came into my office, she had gone to Washington State, and she had actually picked up an entire truck full. She had gotten a truck. She had a truck full of things to take to them.
That's
And
great.
it was just an amazing thing. And he actually, this Nordic race gentleman, came in one other time and just sort of the same thing, sort of beamed in and was here. And I was like, what do you need? What's
I
up?
remember you.
Yeah, we know
Hard to
each other.
forget.
We know each other. And he just came in, made his presence known, never said a word. I didn't get anything telepathically. I didn't hear anything verbal, and then left. And shortly thereafter, she contacted me. So I know that, they work together. They're connected.
Well, that's so cool. I had a feeling that you had, I couldn't remember what it was, but I remembered something that when I was really looking into this topic, I think Roz has had an encounter. It's been said that there's millions of human and humanoid civilizations in the cosmos, and over a dozen have visited Earth at one time or another. It's probably more than that. And they come in all sizes and shapes. So these Nordic aliens are also known as tall white aliens and the blonde humanoids. And the reason they're named Nordic is because they resemble Scandinavians of Nordic descent. They have blue eyes, blonde hair, and they can easily be mistaken for a native of the region. However, probably not 8 or 9 feet tall. And interesting, Nordics are considered one of the friendlier alien races. And ET experts claim that these creatures have the gift of empathy, telepathy, and physical beauty. So I think we're just going to kind of dive in here. What's the origin? I got to tell you, I thought this was funny. Don't be offended, you people who are absolutely love our alien topics, but the Nordic aliens, were first mentioned, and they kind of inspired by the 1951 movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still. And that's when it really became known that this even existed. And that was a movie about aliens visiting Earth during the Cold War to dissuade humans from using nuclear arms and to teach the world about peace and tolerance. And believers claim that the human-like creatures first began making contact with Earthlings as early as the 1950s. So maybe it's one of those things where the movie came out to prepare humanity for contact from the Nordics.
Oh,
I do think that happens.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure that, there are a lot of these television shows and movies and everything that come on that are actually trying to open the mind of the Earth species that are here, because we're not we're not the most open people to that kind of stuff. We have a lot of fear wrapped around that.
Even
And
some
the amazing
people,
thing to me was how when she walked in my office, and I mean the time just shifted, because from that point forth, my entire day that I pretty much spent with her, and it was just great. I mean, we totally were in sync. We were on the same frequency. It was just awesome.
don't you think a lot of people who are really actually into aliens and other beings on other planets, even they're scared when they actually have an encounter? So, we've kind of had it ingrained by Hollywood TV and movies that it's a scary thing. And it can be, but there's races out there like the Nordics that really are friendly towards us. So I want to tell you this, like in October of 1954, a mother and two children saw a giant flying object hovering over their house, and this was in the UK. And encounters with them became less common in the decades that followed. But the Nordics have told abductees that they're visiting from Venus, but some said they were from the Pleiades star cluster. So, I keep finding the more I look into it, the more conflicting that is, but maybe they're from both. Well, that's weird.
Really, we just have to tune into our intuitive sense, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because the one thing I do notice is whenever I do have a connection, for whatever reason, or a face-to-face, meeting like that, I feel like it's all been pre-planned, not by me, of course. I just rolled with it, but
I think that's true. I think there's definitely something to that. And it's interesting that there's several ancient civilizations and religions where Nordic aliens are what they describe. It would be Nordic aliens. They're angelic entities. And we've talked about that before, how there are ultra terrestrials that have the same frequency as angels, the same intentions. I've met numerous ones like that. And so clearly the Nordics fit in there. But according to the Native American tribe, the Hopis, their prophecy says that these tall white beings are peaceful beings who symbolize the end of the fourth age. And I apologize, I really meant to look and see what the ages are, because I don't know, or I forgot. So I'll have to look that up, but maybe you can take a look online for that, see what the fourth age is per Hopi prophecy. There are some people who say that the Nordics strayed from the path of light and worked with some occultists in pre-Nazi Berlin. And by partnering with the aliens, that society hoped to learn ways to master divine energy that would help them conquer people. But that's the only negative thing I could find. And I think that's hearsay. So, I think that could be a conspiracy theory. I don't know, but I found it, thought I'd put it out there. So we talked about what they're like, and Roz, they're 6 to 7 feet tall. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
I have no doubt.
Long blonde or reddish hair and big foreheads. And their eyes are either blue or green. But there's some people out there who've encountered them who say Nordics don't have irises, that they wear contact lenses to look more humanoid. So could be to try to blend into the crowd, but their skin is very light colored. They wear skin tight clothing and are said to be predominantly male. So, and I was thinking about that as you're talking about your encounter. Maybe they just all look male. Maybe they're an androgynous race. That's something to think about.
Could be.
Personality wise, I always find this interesting. They're said to be friendly with an ethereal air. And you know what that makes me think of is like the fairies in Lord of the Rings. How they're tall and thin and they had pale skin and the white hair. I wondered if they were modeled after the Nordics. They're watchful, paternal, affectionate, and wise. And again, they have great telepathic powers. Well, we've both talked about different encounters with races where we were communicated with, but we realized we weren't talking and they weren't talking. So it's almost always telepathic. So I think that's like the galactic universal language, and it won't matter what language you speak somehow. It's very interesting. So anyway, they mean well for the human race and they want to help us. And they're associated with benevolent traits like love and spiritual growth, and they're called protectors for the experiences. So I think people who are raising their frequency, people who are putting it out there, I'm open to visits from these ultra terrestrials, because I've had people say, why do you and Roz get these visits? Why is it so common for you? I think it's our frequency. I think it's because we work on it so much.
And I've had a lot of time over the years to think about what was going on in the world, like what was happening at that point. Like, are they, are we on the same frequency wavelength? And so it's easier to do telepathic communication under those circumstances. I mean, I sure don't know, but I do remember, and I've told this story before, but I had a severe uh, illness when I was 10 that became a near death experience. And, the doctors had just thrown up their hands and given up. They couldn't figure out what was going on. Had all this weird stuff happening in my body. My red blood cell count was like a zip. I had obviously something infectious or something, life threatening. And I was bedridden. I mean, I stayed at home in bed for 3 months. And one evening, I awakened, and there were these three presences there. These three aliens. They look like what we traditionally think of as aliens, but they were smiling. Obviously, their energy felt good. I said the same thing I always say: with who are you? What are you doing here? But they had their presence, and their energy was just so kind, so loving, so embracing. And I was still laying in bed, and this was at about 4 o'clock in the morning. The weirdest thing, that all they did was smile, and there were three of them, and they just kind of tilted their head over and smiled, and they stayed there for what I thought was a few minutes as a kid who's just been awakened. But and then they left, and then I got well. So yeah, something was definitely going on there. And that, whether it is a Nordic presence, or that they are emissaries of love, that's what it felt like, that they were coming in, and they were they figured, I guess I was about to transition over, because I wasn't doing very well. And as soon as they came and bestowed whatever energy that was, I recovered. So I think somehow that connection, I felt like the connection I had with them was a soul connection from before I've ever been here at this time. It was definitely an an experience where they knew that I needed help. They knew, and they came and did whatever they did. So pretty amazing. And I feel that way very much about the experience of connecting with this Nordic. I felt like he was a leader, a some type of a leader of their race who came in, and he obviously came to introduce Jenny. So I mean, wow. I feel like some of that stuff is, coordinated by them when they want to connect with you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how many times have we heard people say, I don't know why, I was just driving by and I saw the name of your business and I felt like I have to go there. I saw your picture online and I knew I had to come see you and I don't even know why.
True.
It's a frequency thing. So they are members of the Galactic Federation. We've had that topic on the show before. If you didn't hear that, go back to a previous episode and take a listen to that. So they prefer to conceal their identity and communicate with humans through dreams or telepathy. But clearly, I mean, based just on Roz's experience alone, they can just flat out, boom, appear in the middle of the day, full form there if they want to. What's their mission here on Earth? Well, there's a historian, a cultural historian, and I might be mispronouncing his name, David Skull, says that they visit Earth to warn humans about the dangers of nuclear weapons, that they encourage world peace. They ask us to overcome our differences so that we may live together in harmony. Until we can do that, we can never be part of anything resembling the Galactic Federation. We will be like the naughty children in detention until that happens. They're also concerned about our environment, as rightfully so, and improving the state of the planet. And people who are really into the Nordics say that they were sent from higher realms to impart emotional and spiritual wisdom to us here on Earth. And therefore, they're part of an essential part of the ascension process of Earth and the habitats of Earth. And we are in the process of that. So their message is about peace and their role as stewardship of the planet Earth. And they try to protect us by warning about hostile, non-positive intention alien beings. And there's also a book called Nordic Aliens and the Star People of the Americas by Lars Bergen and Sharon Delarose. And they write that Nordic aliens visited the Incas in the 8th century. They settled on Earth to teach them ways to be better humans and advance their civilization. And there's always, I think that really resonates for me, because remember I told you about my age 12 to 14 obsession with In Search of Ancient Astronauts book series. I devoured them until the pages fell out of the book. So they talk about that in there, how all these things they discovered were like so far ahead technological wise of where things should have been on any civilization on Earth at that time. And it's not just there, but that's just one instance. It had to be something like that. I mean, some civilization from outside of our world, far advanced of ours, to come in and give them that information that they gave the Incas knowledge about farming, irrigation, writing, astronomy, medicine, tool making, and protecting ourselves. And they cleaned out the hazy atmosphere that blocked the sun and the moon after a major volcanic eruption. And when they left, it said that they promised they would return to Earth. So clearly they are coming. I mean, here's Roz, and I was there the day this happened. I wasn't out in the lobby, and she's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So I remember her reaction to this, like, you're not going to believe what I just saw in the lobby.
Who
They're
gave
coming.
you this?
I have different beings come to my office regularly. If they're not the tall Nordics, I don't know what they are. I want to talk about these notable abductees of Nordic aliens. It's not common that they're associated with abductions, but when they do, they're messengers of peace again. And so there's a few notable ones. Some of them, I mean, you know, take it for what you will. One is this Howard Menger. He became famous. He detailed friendly chats with Adamski Venusian space brothers in the late 1950s. And he wrote a book called From Outer Space to You. And he explains how he made contact with Nordics. So I'm just telling you these so you can look it up and look into it. Maybe these are some books you'd like to read. Another one's Travis Walton. Now this guy, he was an American forestry worker when Nordic aliens abducted him. He was working with his lumber crew in the White Mountain, up in like the mountains of Arizona, and a hovering alien craft appeared and emitted a beam of light that knocked him unconscious. He wrote a book called The Walton Experience, which there's actually a movie made about this. And he was taken on board the craft where he met several tall white humanoids. The aliens released him after a few days, and he was located on the side of a road by scent dogs that had been looking for him for days. And I have to tell you that shortly after all this happened, one of the people on that lumber crew was dropped into my life, and I was in close contact with him for about 3 years. And he told me his whole experience, and it traumatized him so intensely, like he couldn't function anymore. He couldn't work. He couldn't do his daily life. Like he wasn't a believer in aliens, and the whole thing just completely knocked him off his axis. And he got mislabeled as schizophrenic because, you know, psychiatrists would say, well, you know, you saw something that doesn't even exist. And you could tell he was absolutely telling the truth about his story. So that was a really, really powerful event for all the guys on that crew. Another one's George Adamski. I want to make sure you hear that. He's a Polish American author. And he was known for meeting with the Nordic aliens again in the 1950s. Apparently, they were very popular in the 50s. And he describes his experiences inside the spaceships and flying saucers have landed. He claimed he took flights with the Nordics to the moon and other planets. And during the 40s and 50s, he displayed numerous photographs of alien spaceships. So these are kind of like some of the early people. Billy Meyer, a former Swedish farmer who said he had contact with them. He took several photos and films claiming they were actual alien spaceships. And later he founded a UFO cult called Free Community of Interest for the Border and Spiritual Sciences and UFOlogical Studies. That's a mouthful. He delivers words on love and peace to humanity that were relayed to him by the Nordics. Now here's one you're going to love. And I do remember hearing this, Raj. You'll have to tell me if you do. It's not about an abduction, but it's about contact. President Eisenhower, and I had read about this, that when he was president, he had a secret meeting with Nordics at Edwards Air Force Base in February of 1954. And the objective of the meeting was to create an agreement over technology exchange and disarm the nuclear missile program. But it's been said the session did not end on any deal. But he chose to enter a treaty with gray aliens so the US could keep its nuclear weapons while also upgrading technology. And in return for this, the Greys could abduct and experiment on the American people without being questioned. Well, here's no surprise. I mean, again, take it as you will, folks. Officials at the Eisenhower Presidential Center have dismissed these claims. Are you surprised? Did you hear about that before?
I've read about his connecting with aliens, quote unquote.
Yeah. I figured. I mean, I think these aliens are one of the more popular because their appearance is beautiful, and so it's less frightening for people. They're very humanoid in appearance, and even though they're tall and they're able to communicate telepathically, it's like another human coming into you, which is not nearly as scary as like a praying mantis being or, you know, some reptilian thing, or even the Greys that are just not humanoid.
You know, it's interesting because I have talked with people who have had encounters with these more insect-like aliens and aliens that looked more reptilian. You know, obviously that's a scary event. We're not, you know, psychologically or emotionally really prepared to encounter a language speaking creature, as we would think of them, being, however you want to call it, who suddenly appears in our dimensional frequency. But it does happen. And I actually was, after this encounter and everything that happened that day, I was pretty mind boggled. I mean, I was like reviewing that for a while, like, whoa, I didn't think that was going to happen.
The day Roz fell into a sci-fi movie.
Really? But
Roz's episode of The Twilight Zone.
I would certainly be more comfortable encountering someone not only humanoid looking but beautiful like these people. And I include Jenny in that too. I mean, just a very powerful and fabulous connection there. And ironically, you know, I don't know how I would respond. When I was a kid, I just loved any kind of insect, carried them around in my pockets. I made my mother nuts. You know, encountering, I could have a whole pocket full of grasshoppers and whatever. And so I don't know, maybe that wouldn't bother me.
It's one
Maybe
thing
I
to
wouldn't
have
be
one this
frightened.
size in your pocket, and another thing to have a 6-foot tall grasshopper that's talking.
Talking to you.
And we always say it's about how it feels. So if something visits you, you don't know what it is, just tune into how it feels. I've had some things visit me that did not feel good. And I didn't stop to think, to find out where they're from, what they want. I just blasted them the heck out of there, because if it doesn't feel good, I don't want it in my space. I don't want it around me at all. You know,
Yeah.
I'm fine with
Okay.
anything of the light coming at any time. Visit, love it. It's fun. Uh-oh, Roz froze. I hope she didn't lose internet again. Just so you know, there's horrendous internet in Sedona. So hopefully Roz will make it back, but we're really about time to end the show. It went so fast. And thank you so much for joining us. And we hope that you'll come back next week. Our topic is ending the reincarnation process. If you're one of those who are like, I am never coming back to this planet again, I'm never going to reincarnate, you're going to want to tune into this show. You might actually have some questions, and we're going to talk about that next Friday. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.